You're watching the Midlife Fulfilled podcast, the show for men and women over 40 who want to thrive in midlife. I'm your host, Bernie Borges. Prepare to be inspired, educated, challenged, or maybe all three on this episode of the Midlife Fulfilled podcast. Tim, welcome to the Midlife Fulfilled podcast, a BF to AF episode.
Thank you, Bernie. I'm delighted to be here and tickled to have listened to some of your podcasts already. And I think you're really nailing it on a great need out there.
Well, thank you, Tim. I'm delighted to have you, and I'm looking forward to our conversation. We agreed that you would do a BF to AF episode. You have an illustrious career. There's lots that you could teach on. But you suggested that we really kind of focus on the fulfillment aspect. Before we get started, Tim, why don't you tell the listener what decade are you in age-wise?
I'm in my 60s.
Okay. I'm in that same club. So it's a good club. Well, from a context perspective, I think your fulfillment story is around career. You've had, again, an illustrious career. So where would you like to begin your story, Tim?
I've always been a fan of The Wizard of Oz, and starting at the beginning of the Yellow Brick Road was wise for Dorothy, and I'll start there. I was born in a log cabin. No, my career started. I'm an attorney by training, and I started working for a large law firm out west, and was delighted to be practicing law there, and became a partner. And it was a dream come true in many ways. But then a little voice was telling me, there's got to be more. There's got to be more. And so in pursuing the fulfillment quest, when the Attorney General of the state invited me to become the state Solicitor General, I went over and did that, in part because I'd spent the first part of my career at the law firm actually suing government quite a bit. And I thought, well, maybe I can fix things from the inside. And so went over to work at the AG's office, and there was an intervening election after the first 4 years of my service, and a new AG came in, and she was from the opposite party and promoted me to be her chief deputy attorney general. Did that for a couple of years. Then at the end of my first AG's term, I thought I would pursue a dream, but I postponed it at that time. And the dream was to create a nonprofit center for leadership, ethics, and public service. And I did that for 8 years, crisscrossing the country, working with judges, legislators, nonprofits, executive officials, mayors, etc., just trying to help people understand where some of the ethical laws are, what the limitations are, and reminding them why they're doing public service. And then in 2008, my predecessor was leaving, and the board at the National Council of Nonprofits recruited me to take on the role of being the CEO. So for the last 15 plus years, I've been the president and CEO of the National Council of Nonprofits, working with nonprofits across the country.
Okay, well, first of all, congratulations, because in about 5 minutes, you just covered about a 40-year career history. That's pretty remarkable. And I'm going to ask you to press rewind and go back to something at the beginning of your career overview. You said, Tim, and I'm going to paraphrase because I don't know that I can quote you verbatim, but you said something to the effect of you were chasing fulfillment. I'd like to unpack that, Tim, when you said that, and I think it was in reference to the early part of your career, if I'm not mistaken. What did you mean by that? What does chasing fulfillment mean at that point in your career?
And I would say I'm not done chasing it. It's something that's always out there. It's elusive. Back
But did
back
you
in
know
the
you were
day,
chasing it though early in your career?
no, I didn't use the word fulfillment. I just knew that I was not fulfilled, and I needed more. Again, a blessing for me. I was able to receive scholarships in order to go to undergraduate and then law school and policy school. So I knew I needed to work at a private law firm to pay off all the student loans that I had amassed over the years, in conjunction with the scholarships. And then at the law firm, I was doing as much pro bono work as possible, trying to help people in the community. When there was injustice, I had the opportunity to step forward and help people. And that was fulfilling. And it was usually situations where, in my opinion, the system was lined up against individuals. And so we needed to fix the systems. And you can do so much pro bono on the side, but I needed more of that in terms of helping people, and representing the big banks and the big manufacturers and the big everything else. Those paid the bills, and that's certainly what my partners wanted, was the people who would be billing all those hours and bringing in the money, and I understood that, but I needed more um, sense that I am adding value to the world. And whether it was me representing this bank in this case or somebody else, we were, nothing unique. Whereas stepping forward and doing some of the pro bono work could actually solve problems and help people, and that's what really drove me, doing more and more in the community. At the same time I was doing that at the law firm, I was also getting very involved in the community, serving on nonprofit boards, sitting on the city's Parks and Recreation Board, just service in a variety of different ways. And that's where I was finding happiness and joy. And I just felt the golden handcuffs of the law firm getting tighter and tighter. And I knew if I didn't um, evacuate quickly, that
Hmm.
I might be stuck there forever. And again, it was a great firm, great people, but I needed more.
You said that you didn't know you were chasing fulfillment, but that you knew that you were not fulfilled. Do you remember reaching a point in your life? And I'm not asking you for like the day, but do you remember reaching a point where you did realize that you were chasing or wanted to chase fulfillment?
In those terms, it was the first time it really kind of clicked that that's what I've been doing, was when you and I spoke recently, and it was just like it all clicked and I understood it. And until then, I just knew that there was this drive, this desire to do more, to help more, and I continued to do that through various jobs I've been blessed with the opportunity to serve in.
So then what it sounds like then is you've wanted for many years, you've wanted to make a difference beyond just the economics of driving the billable revenue that a law firm is in the business to do, is they drive billable revenue by supporting their clients. But you've long wanted to make a difference. You sounds like you had opportunities early in your career to make a difference through pro bono work. But Tim, it also sounds like over the years that desire, that drive for you to make a difference, just it sounds like it continued to sort of grow inside of you, like you wanted to do more, is kind of what I'm hearing.
You are sussing that out very well, because it has been something that's growing. And when I'm caught up in the big things in various jobs I've had, the rest of the world kind of shuts up because you can see and feel and sense that you actually are making a difference. And that's where it's fun and exciting. And I that the drive to make a difference, to have impact, I think is fueled by two things. One, when I was very young, the city library was just a couple blocks away. It was a pretty rural town in Indiana, and I was able to walk down the street to the library and um, read the children's book section. Because it was a small library in a small town, it wasn't a big children's section, and there were at my age only a few books that I was able to read, and it turns out they were about our nation's founding fathers. And I would read and reread those, and for whatever reason it stuck out that in order to be somebody, you needed to be a lawyer. I
Mm.
didn't know what a lawyer was, but I just had this crazy notion that if I was going to have impact, that's what I needed to do. And lo and behold, when I'm a father and I'm reading books and I saw those and got them from my daughters and would be reading to them, I recognized, wow, those founding fathers were also um, uh, printing papers and were assayers for the land and were um, marketeers and all sorts of other things. And for whatever reason, and farmers certainly, and I glommed onto being a lawyer. My life might have been easier if I'd said, well, I want to be a farmer. It probably would have worked a lot harder as a farmer, but and so that's one thing that fueled me. And the other was, again, the way nonprofits have influenced my life is I received a scholarship from people who were generous, who never knew that I existed, but gave money, and it built up over the years. And I happened to be the recipient, and I was able to then go to college that way. And I just felt a desire to give back. I couldn't find out who set the scholarship funds up decades earlier. So it was a matter of paying it forward. And so just using the training that I had as an attorney to then do good in the world was a way of paying them back and feeling like the debt that I owed them was being reduced. But it could never be paid off. I just, felt like I needed to continue giving, and so that's been the driver.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And I've heard that before. I think it's just part of our human spirit, because I've heard others share similar stories, Tim, where they had the good fortune, they were blessed by others, whether it was individuals or organizations, and they feel compelled to give back. Let's talk about your current role. You've been the CEO at the National Council of Nonprofits since 2008. I don't know if the math on that is about 15 years. Let's call it about that. Uh, what's that about? Not just the job, but in the context of the fulfillment that you experience from it.
When I arrived, within just a few weeks, in the summer of 2008, the nation's economy cratered, and it was the Great Recession just erupted. And nonprofits were caught in that. Donations went down significantly. Government stopped paying on their written contract agreements. They would hire nonprofits to go out and do the work. would promise that they would reimburse the nonprofits for the work they were doing on behalf of those governments, and then governments were waiting 2 or 3 years to pay them back.
Mm,
In essence, forcing nonprofits to be subsidizing governments. How backwards is that?
yeah.
And the systems are set up against people who are trying to do good. And so I feel fulfilled when we are able to go out and convince legislators at the state level, talk to people in Congress and so on, to make a difference. One example is with COVID. When it erupted and Congress was passing all sorts of laws quickly to try to help different industries survive, they left nonprofits out of some of those bills. We saw the drafts. Our organization, working with colleagues here and our network across the country, were able to. We drafted language and convinced Congress to put it in there. And according to, for example, on the PPP loans, nonprofits were left out of that. And so money could go to small businesses, but not small nonprofits who we're 10% of the workforce. We're the third largest employer in the country collectively. And they left us out. And so we were able to get nonprofits inserted. And according to the SBA, nonprofits were able to receive $50 billion in PPP loans. And again, according to the SBA, that saved um, about half the nonprofit jobs in the country. That's significant. Can you imagine America without half the nonprofit workforce during the depths of the pandemic, with all the cars lined up seeking food and people lined up seeking shelter and all the great needs? That can't be done without nonprofits. And so it's a thrill to fight the good fight for people who are trying to do good in their local communities to help other people.
Yeah. So I think then you've just connected some dots for me, Tim, where you said that you're still chasing fulfillment. And it sounds to me like that ongoing chase, if you will, is simply the work that you're doing and the impact that you're having by being in service to and in support of nonprofits across the US. And I assume it's US based, right? US focused.
It primarily, we actually have expanded into Canada. Our network, the National Council of Nonprofits, is the largest network of charitable nonprofits in North America. We connect nonprofits coast to coast, border to border, and into Canada now. Just trying to help connect dots. We do three things. We connect nonprofits so that they can do peer learning and work together on community problems. We champion nonprofits in public policy advocacy work and trying to help people understand they have a voice, and they can talk to their government officials. Nonprofits are the closest people to the actual social problems. They will know the solutions better than anyone else. So we shouldn't be hoarding those solutions. We ought to be going and talking to lawmakers to say, the system's broken, here's how you can fix it. Unfortunately, a lot of lawmakers ignore nonprofits, and so it's a clash. And then the third thing we do is we inform people about nonprofits, including informing nonprofits. But we do research, we publish it, we do a lot of sense making, looking at the trends that are developing. So through those three things, we have our fingers in a lot of different pots that we're stirring all the time.
Okay. And so back to the fulfillment question. So you're still chasing that fulfillment just by virtue of what you're doing and the impact that you're having in the nonprofit world. Is that right, Tim?
Yes, the act of chasing normally occurs in my experience with the different jobs that I've had. at a certain point, I understood that I would never be able to reach the kind of fulfillment that I needed at the law firm. So I started just looking around. Then at the AG's office, I knew I wasn't going to do that for my entire life. And I was looking around. I helped impeach a governor and remove him from office. I removed some other elected officials when I was at the AG's office for breaching the public trust. And then I've always been enamored with leadership and how people can serve. And so I kept walking around going, what on the planet can I do where I can be marrying leadership and ethics and public service together? And thought about going to university, but I didn't want to be caught up in something that's big, but then get squeezed out because of the university setting. So I finally said, I'll create a nonprofit. I didn't know what all was going to be involved, but I just did it. And then this opportunity came up, and so I took that. But at different stages in previous jobs, there came a point where I realized this isn't enough. I need more. So it wasn't consciously saying I'm going to go. Today I'm still chasing, but it's really when it reaches the point. No matter what I do, I'm not going to be able to do it enough, and so I need find something else to do. And to your listeners, I would encourage people to listen to those inner voices and have the courage to then act. Too many people are unfulfilled because they get on the first step of the conveyor belt of life and they just kind of roll along on that conveyor belt and nothing much exciting happens. They just keep moving along. And there are places where you can jump off that conveyor belt and chart your own path and do something different. And that's when the magic occurs. When you have the courage, you take action, and you're creating something. And it's scary as all get out, but it's energizing.
I couldn't agree more. Very, very well said. Very articulate, Tim. What comes to mind is that you provide great inspiration to, I'll call the younger listeners. In this case, I'm referring to people specifically in their 40s. The reason that I call out that decade, Tim, is because I often hear from people in their 40s this sense of I've got to achieve X, Y, or Z now before it's too late, as if the world is going to end or the life is going to end in the next 2 years. For some reason, many people in their 40s think that they've just got to make everything happen. That this fulfillment journey that they've been on, it's got to happen now. And you and I, because we're both in that same decade, are charging hard with lots of energy, working hard, chasing fulfillment, recognizing it. We're doing it knowingly. We're chasing fulfillment knowingly and enjoying the journey along the way. And I hope that anyone that's in their 40s can look at you and I. We're here to feature you, not me, but because we're both in the same decade, I can speak a little bit for both of us, saying look forward to the continuation of the journey. Don't think that because you're in your 40s, again, I'm speaking to the listener, not you and I, Tim, that it's got to happen tomorrow. You are a great example of you're enjoying the journey in your current decade, and there's so much that we have to give for a long, long time.
Absolutely. However, but my take on it is again, it wasn't until we spoke recently that this concept of chasing fulfillment, it was really more about making a difference. It was about having impact. And now I'm seeing that I get fulfillment from doing that. I didn't have that label before. And so I offer that perspective. The other thing for your um, younger listeners is I've been taken aback recently by my own ignorance, and I've had my nose to the grindstone, just focused on doing things. But I've had in the back of my head this scene from Little Big Man, where the chief um, starts to wander off into the prairie, and Dustin Hoffman's character chases him and is like, where are you going? And the chief said, in our culture, we go off when the spirit calls us, so we're going to die. And so we just walk out and we don't, push that on everybody else. Now, that's my memory. I'm not saying that's exactly what was said. And then the chief comes back a couple days later, going, "Well, I guess the spirit didn't need me. I misheard that call," and that gets repeated throughout. But in my head, from long ago, when you turned 65, you retired, and then you kind of shriveled up and were a raisin, and then you died. And it's just recently that I've become aware of the tremendous life opportunities after people retire, their first career, whatever that may be, or multiple careers that they've strung together. And there's so much future out there to provide more impact. And that impact can be for society, like I have been chasing, or it can be for yourself. I'm intrigued by how you have your 5 pillars um, of fulfillment,
Hmm.
and with health and fitness and career and relationships and legacy. And um, it struck me that people can get involved with nonprofits in all of those aspects to pursue with health. You've got the physical with nonprofit hospitals and clinics and youth swimming. Mental, you've got education centers from preschool to going to Yale, teaching, to suicide prevention. And so there's a full range. Or fitness. You've got Little League all the way to the Senior Olympics and beyond. Careers. A lot of people start their careers as interns at nonprofits where they get exposed to a variety of different things, and then they go into the for-profit market, or like I've done, working for nonprofits, either as a volunteer or full-time employment. And relationships with yourself through education, relationships with God through religious congregations and spiritual centers, the relationships with others, the opportunities are endless. Relationship with the environment through conservation groups or climate change groups, responding to the natural disasters, and legacy, pretty much any and all of the above, and giving back through your time and donations. So your 5 pillars of fulfillment. If anyone's searching for fulfillment, I invite you, please get involved with a nonprofit. That's where you will find fulfillment and happiness.
Wow, that is beautifully said, Tim. Very eloquently said, and I think we'll wrap it there. This is a conversation that has really exceeded my expectation in terms of just gaining further insight and understanding into the experience that you've had. I'm really struck by what you said about how fulfillment is only a recent sort of understanding for you. But I would even submit to you that it was just a different word for you. It's something you've been very, very aware of for decades. It was just a different word. And now the word fulfillment resonates with you, and that's great. But you certainly have been aware of it. It was just a different word. and now you're applying that word in a way that's meaningful to you, and that's terrific. But
I would agree with that, Bernie, and take it a step further. And I thank you for exposing me to this concept of fulfillment through your podcast. But recently in conversation, I had a conversation with someone on Saturday, and she was talking about fulfillment and her changes in career and so on. And all of a sudden, there's this word that's popped up. I didn't have a label or a handle for it before. Now I do, and it helps make me feel a little more fulfilled.
I love it. I love it. Well, Tim, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the Midlife Fulfilled Podcast Day, a BF to AF conversation that is just heartwarming. Would you like to share a LinkedIn profile link if anybody wants to connect with you, where they can maybe connect with you on LinkedIn?
Sure. Um, LinkedIn, Tim Delaney.
Okay, well, we'll put that in the show notes page so
Okay.
that anybody who's interested in connecting can certainly connect with you there. Tim,
And,
thank you so much.
yeah, and certainly through the National Council of Nonprofits, I invite people to go to our website, the councilofnonprofits.org. Um, the research that we do, the materials we develop, we do it for free as a matter of equity so that everybody has access to it. It's not a pay to play. And you will find a wealth of activity information, including how to link up with nonprofits in your state, so that there's endless opportunities at your fingertips at councilnonprofits.org.
Wonderful. Well, that will be linked up in the show notes as well.
And then, can we redo the opening? I felt that that was kind of clumsy on my part.
Sure. Sure. We can. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. So here we go. In three, two, one on the opening. Tim, welcome to the Midlife Fulfilled Podcast, a BF to AF episode.
Thanks, Bernie. I'm delighted to be here. Been looking forward to this conversation with you from the exposure I've had so far to your great podcast.
Fantastic. Yep. Got it. We'll move that up to the front.
Great.
All right.